My advice, don't ever get an electric car.
I wouldn't have an electric car if it was free.
Actually, most, if not all, electric cars I see or know look like shit.
£540 to charge an EV.
Right now, there are cars sitting in American driveways that their own makers are begging owners not to park in the garage because they might burst into flames while the family sleeps. Not while driving, not while charging, just sitting there, parked, quietly catching fire in the dead of night. Hundreds of thousands of electric and plug-in vehicles are under fire risk recalls this year. Some of them for the second time because the first fix did absolutely nothing, and a few of them still have no fix at all. So which 7 should you never buy, and why are the car makers leaving them out on the road? Make sure you subscribe, because I started this channel for one reason, to share what dealerships and car makers don't want you to hear. With your support, I can keep making these videos. Now let's get into it. Let me tell you the phrase that ties this entire nightmare together, because you are going to hear it over and over. Park outside, away from structures. That is the official instruction, straight from the car makers themselves, printed in black and white in the recall paperwork. It means the company that sold you a $60,000 vehicle is now telling you that you are not allowed to keep it in your own garage, because it might take your house with it. And in a lot of these cases, they are also telling you to stop charging it, which for an electric car is like telling you to stop putting gas in it. Think about what that actually means. You bought the thing to drive, and now they are telling you not to park it where you park, and not to fill it up the way you fill it up. That is not a small defect. That is a car the maker has quietly admitted is dangerous to own, and they are hoping you just live with it. So let's go through the 7 worst offenders, one at a time, and I am saving the single most alarming one for the end, because that one still does not have a fix. Let's start with the one that started it all, the Chevrolet Bolt. This is the car that wrote the playbook everybody else is now following. General Motors ended up recalling around 140,000 Bolts because the battery packs could catch fire, and there were real fires, real burned out cars sitting in real driveways. And here is what General Motors told those owners to do while they waited. Limit your charging. Do not charge overnight unattended. Park the car outside and away from your house. For months, people who had paid good money for a brand new electric car were sleeping with one ear open, walking out every morning half expecting to see a scorch mark on the concrete. The battery cells inside had a manufacturing defect, a torn internal layer and a folded edge, and any one cell going bad could take the whole pack up with it. Now you might think that is old news, that the Bolt is yesterday's problem, but those cars are out there right now, on used lots all across the country, being sold to people who have no idea about the history. A used car shopper walking onto an independent lot outside of Phoenix sees a clean, cheap electric hatchback and thinks he found a bargain. He is not being told what that car was recalled for. And that is the thread running through this whole story, because the danger does not disappear when the headlines do. It just gets resold to somebody who is not paying attention. That brings us to the second one, and this is where it stops being one company's problem and starts looking like an industry-wide sickness. Hyundai and Kia. These two brands were being called the future of electric, winning awards, getting praised in every review, and then the recalls started landing. Their electric models, the Ioniq 5, the EV6, and the EV9, got hit with a battery fire recall because the electrodes inside the cells were misaligned from the factory, and misaligned electrodes can short out and burn. And what were owners told to do? The same thing. Park outside, away from structures, and limit the battery charge to 80% until it is fixed. And this was not even the first time for these brands. Their earlier electric SUV, the Kona Electric, went through one of the most expensive fire recalls in electric history. Tens of thousands of vehicles pulled back worldwide because the battery cells could ignite, and there were real garage fires to prove it was not just paperwork. That recall reportedly cost close to $1 billion to sort out. So this is a repeat performance. The same brands, the same kind of bad cells, the same instruction to the customer. Park it outside. So a family in the Kansas City area that traded up to a shiny new electric Hyundai specifically because it felt like the safe, modern, responsible choice is now being told to keep that responsible choice out of the garage and never fill it past 80%. They did the careful thing. They bought the well-reviewed one, and they still got handed a warning label they never saw at the dealership. Being careful did not protect them because the defect was baked into the battery long before they ever signed the paperwork. Number 3 is Volkswagen, and specifically the ID.4, their big electric family SUV, the one they built their entire American electric push around. Volkswagen had to recall more than 44,000 of them for battery fire risk. The cause? Once again, defective cells, this time traced back to a battery supplier building packs with misaligned internal parts. Most of those owners got told a fix was coming, but a smaller batch of them got the worst version of the letter, the one that says park outside immediately, away from buildings, because your risk is higher right now. Picture that. You bought the family SUV, the one you load the kids into every single morning, and one day a letter shows up telling you to go move it away from the house tonight. Not next week, tonight. A Volkswagen dealer in the Portland area had customers calling in a panic, asking if their car was going to burn the house down, and the honest answer the service desk could give was basically, park it outside and wait. That is the reality behind the friendly electric advertising. When the cells are bad, there is no quick fix. There is only park it far away and pray. Now for number 4, and this one hits a name that used to mean bulletproof reliability. Nissan and the Leaf. The Leaf was one of the first mass-market electric cars in America, the sensible little commuter, the car your neighbor bought to feel good about his carbon footprint. Well, Nissan has had to recall Leaf models over fire risk too. One recall covered thousands of them tied to a fire hazard connected to fast charging, the exact thing electric owners are told is the convenient way to power up. And a newer recall hit the latest Leaf because the high-voltage battery could have internal damage, short out, and catch fire, with owners told, you guessed it, park outside and do not charge it until it is repaired. Sit with that for a second. The single most basic promise of an electric car is that you can charge it and drive it, and here is Nissan telling Leaf owners that the charging itself might be what sets it on fire, and that until further notice they should not do the one thing the car exists to do. A little commuter car that you cannot safely charge is not a commuter car. It is an expensive paperweight with a recall notice taped to the window. But before we get to the last 3, I need you to understand something because it changes how you should look at every single one of these. These are not freak accidents. Every one of these fires traces back to the same root, and that root is going to make you angry when I lay it out at the end. Because the next 3 offenders include a beloved American truck, a luxury badge people paid a fortune to own, and one vehicle so dangerous the maker still cannot fix it and is being sued over it right now. Number 5 is Ford, and it stings, because this is the Blue Oval, the truck company, the brand that built its whole identity on being tough and dependable. Ford had to recall F-150 Lightning trucks after finding defects in the high-voltage battery cells, the kind of defect that can lead to a fire. This is the electric version of the best-selling vehicle in America, the truck Ford spent a fortune convincing working people to trust. And it is not just the truck. Ford has a long, ugly history with its plug-in hybrids catching fire too. Models where owners were flat out told to stop charging and park away from other vehicles and buildings while the company scrambled for answers. So the guy who bought the electric Lightning to tow his boat and feel ahead of the curve, and the family that bought the Ford plug-in to save a little at the pump, both ended up in the same place. Standing in the driveway, reading a letter, being told their brand new Ford is safer parked far away from everything they own. A Ford dealer outside of Nashville had a longtime customer, a man who had bought nothing but Fords his whole life, come in white-knuckled and ask a simple question. If it is not safe in my garage, why is it safe on the road with my grandkids in the back seat? The service writer did not have a good answer, because there is not one. Tough and dependable does not mean much when the battery is the weak point, and on these, the battery was the weak point. Number 6 is Jaguar. And this one is for everybody who thinks paying more buys you safety. The Jaguar I-Pace was the fancy electric SUV, the one that cost luxury money, the one that was supposed to be a cut above the ordinary electric crowd. And it has been through repeated fire recalls, tied to defective battery cells from its supplier. The same basic story as the cheap cars, but with a much bigger price tag on the hood. Owners were told to limit their charging and park outside, away from structures, and some of these cars did burn. The situation got bad enough that some owners were bought out entirely because there was simply no clean fix. Think about the cruelty in that. A buyer stretches his budget, pays a premium for the luxury badge specifically because he believes the expensive thing must be the safer, better engineered thing. And he ends up with the exact same park it outside warning as everyone else, just with more of his own money burned into it. The luxury badge did not buy him safety. It bought him a more expensive version of the same fire risk. And that brings us to number 7, the worst one on this entire list, the one I have been warning you about, Jeep and its plug-in hybrids. The Wrangler and the Grand Cherokee 4xe, the ones parents buy to haul kids to school and take up to the mountains on the weekend. Stellantis, the company that owns Jeep, had to recall around 320,000 of these plug-in hybrids because the battery can short out and catch fire, whether it is parked or being driven. And this is not a theoretical risk they are getting ahead of. By their own count, there have already been 19 fires, and at least one person has been injured. Owners were told to stop charging the vehicles immediately and park them away from houses and other cars. Now here's the part that should genuinely frighten you. Jeep already tried to fix this once. They pushed out a software update to solve it, and it did not work. Of those 19 fires, 9 of them happened on vehicles that had already received the so-called fix. The patch did nothing. And as of right now, the real remedy, in the company's own words, is still under development. Read that again. 320,000 vehicles, real fires, real injuries, a failed first fix, and still no actual solution. They are literally being sued over it, because owners were left holding a car they were told not to charge and not to park near their own home, with no repair in sight. That is not a recall. That is an admission that they sold something they do not yet know how to make safe. So here's the truth sitting underneath all 7 of these, the thing they will never put in an advertisement. Not one of these fires is bad luck. They almost all trace back to the same root cause, which is the battery cell itself and how it gets made. To build electric cars fast enough and cheap enough to hit their targets, the industry leaned on a small handful of battery suppliers, cranking out cells at enormous speed, and when you build anything that fast and that cheap, defects slip through. A tiny fold in an internal layer, an electrode lined up a hair out of place, a microscopic tear you cannot see, and in a battery holding that much energy, one bad cell is all it takes to start a fire that water can barely stop. And this is the part most people do not understand about these fires, the part that makes them so much worse than a normal car fire. When one of these cells lets go, it does not just burn, it goes into what the experts call thermal runaway, where it heats up the cell next to it, which heats up the next one, in a chain reaction that feeds itself. It can reach temperatures that ordinary firefighting simply cannot handle. It can reignite hours, even days, after everyone thought it was out. Firefighters have had to let some of these cars just burn themselves down to nothing, or drown them in thousands of gallons of water, far more than a gas fire ever needed, because there is no easy off switch on a battery that has decided to burn. That is why the makers are so desperate to keep these cars out of your garage. They know that once it starts, it is nearly impossible to stop, and it will take whatever is around it. That is also why you see the exact same story play out on a cheap Chevy and an expensive Jaguar. Same suppliers, same shortcuts, same defect, same fire. And here is the part that should really get you, because the fixes tell you everything. When a real repair means tearing out and replacing an entire battery pack, and that costs a fortune, what do these companies reach for first? A software update. And when that does not work, they reach for the cheapest instruction of all. Park outside. Do not charge. Because moving the risk into your driveway costs them nothing, and it makes the problem your problem instead of theirs. That is the whole game. They ship the bad batteries. They cannot afford to fix them all, so they hand you a warning label and hope you never become one of the fires. And let's be honest about who actually gets burned here, literally and financially. It is the careful buyer, the person who did the responsible thing, who bought new, who thought going electric was the smart, modern, safe choice, who followed every instruction to the letter. He is the one now told he cannot park in his own garage. And it gets worse on the used market because these recalled cars do not vanish. They get traded in, cleaned up, and put back on the lot, and the next buyer, the one shopping on a tight budget for an affordable used electric car, often has no idea what he is buying. Nobody at the lot volunteers that this exact model was under a fire recall, so the danger keeps getting passed down the line to whoever knows the least and can afford it the least. That is the quiet injustice underneath all of this. The people with the least information end up holding the most dangerous cars. So what do you actually do about it? A few things, and they are simple. First, before you buy any electric or plug-in vehicle, new or used, look up that exact model and year and check whether it has a fire recall, and whether that recall has actually been completed on that specific car. The information is free and it takes 10 minutes. Second, be extremely careful with used electric cars from the model years and brands in this video, because a cheap price on a recalled electric car is not a bargain. It is a liability somebody is trying to hand off to you. And third, if a maker is telling current owners to park outside and stop charging, that is not a car you buy. That is a car you walk away from until there is a real proven fix in the metal, not a software patch and a warning label. You are not being paranoid by asking these questions. You are being the only person in the room actually looking out for your family. These fire recalls are not slowing down. They are picking up speed, with new models getting added to the park outside list almost every single month. Subscribe, and I will keep showing you exactly which electric cars to stay away from before one of them ends up in your driveway.